Hello, everybody. What is up? Happy Friday, and welcome to your Raptors Happy Hour for Friday, December 12th. Thank you so much for joining me here today, guys. We've got a very good show lined up for you guys today here, like I said, on the Raptors Happy Hour, where we cover the latest Raptors news, we discuss it, we chat, I hear from you, you hear from me, we have some fun talking some Raptor. It's been a little bit less fun the last couple of weeks, as we know, but hopefully you do get some value out of the show today. If you do, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing because you'll keep up to date with all the great content we have. Even with the Raptors away, not playing again until Monday, you've got me here giving you Raptors Happy Hour streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We do Raptors watch-alongs, 15 minutes for almost every Raptors game. And I do clips throughout the week. So lots of great content. Like and subscribe. And I hope everybody had a fantastic week. And I hope everybody is ready for a potentially fantastic weekend. I've got quite a lot of plans lined up for myself this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm a real weekender. I'm a real work hard, play hard. I work long, strenuous hours during the week. And I enjoy my Friday nights and weekends. So yeah. Right, pretty much right after this, getting after things and going out to see some friends. So we're off, and I hope everybody's doing. I hope everyone's got whatever. Maybe it's no plans. Maybe that's good. Sometimes no plans is good. Whatever you got going on. Hope you had a great week, and hope you have a good weekend ahead of you. So, anyways, on the menu for today's show, we are going to be looking at. I thought getting the show ready. I get the shows ready in the morning. When I was getting the show ready, I thought it'd be a little bit more difficult to piece together a show, given the fact that the Raptors haven't played a game in a few days and don't play again until Monday. But there was quite a lot that I wanted to talk about today still. We have the trade rumors that are swirling around the Toronto Raptors right now in the range of, there's more prominently Giannis and Anthony Davis, but maybe to a lesser degree, some outsider names like LaMelo Ball or Trae Young. But Raptors in the mix and a lot of trade rumors. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to kind of respond to a lot of. There's a very large divide in the desire or lack thereof to trade RJ Barrett. So I want to give a little bit further insight into why the Raptors are considering trading RJ Barrett, why the Raptors are looking into trading RJ Barrett. Not quite, go into the specifics of what the trade is going to look like, because we've done that a lot. But I kind of want to do I'll go a bit more in depth on why the Raptors are putting him in all these trade conversations, because for some people out there, they're confused. Then I'm going to review an article I saw that redrafted the 2025 NBA draft class, which just happened. And obviously, we're only like 25, 30 games into these guys' career, but we already have a redraft out, and I was quite upset with the position of Collin Murray-Boyles. And then we'll look at the Raptors 905, their incredible, historic start to the season. We'll look at the NBA Cup schedule for tomorrow. We'll be like the Squidward meme where he's looking out the window, looking at SpongeBob and Patrick having fun. That's us, but we'll look at the NBA Cup schedule, trying to figure out who's going to win that thing. Spoiler, it's probably going to be OKC. And whatever else pops up in the chat along the way, we will certainly get to as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining me here today. Let's shout out the people in the chat in the early phase. If you're just joining as a lurker, hey, I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe say what's up in the chat. Get your username out there. We have Gregory, 12-month member. Thank you so much, Gregory, for the support and for coming through for yet another stream. We've also got Q-Man and Paradise Lost in the chat here. Thank you so much, guys. Gregory saying, I might not be able to say much. I'm composing this after I will dip in. Composing this. AFT. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully you get whatever's sorted. And no problem if you're just listening. You're in and out. Not a problem at all. Q-Man saying, what's up? How's it going? Paradise Lost saying, no trade will happen. I'm feeling like that is the case as well, but I still wanted to explore it nonetheless. Ingram is a really interesting topic. I've been thinking about him a lot since the last episode. No, for me, no. I don't think he's getting traded. I think that's a guy you really want to be building around, You're a pianist. Wow. Now, you always get, like, the craziest, like, the people in the chat. We cover so many different professions. It's super interesting. So a pianist, super interesting. AX Izzo in the chat as well. Thank you for joining. All right. First thing up on the menu, kind of the main theme of the stream. That's how the stream is titled. But the Raptors involved in a lot of trade talks right now. And I kind of wanted to discuss a bit further, like, what do we think the aggression levels are like for Bobby Webster? Because obviously we knew Masai Ujiri, and based on experience, Masai Ujiri was ultra aggressive with the trade market. And every time a star player become available, the Raptors would be linked with a trade. They'd be like one of the higher teams up in the odds to acquire that player from a trade. It always felt like the Raptors were in the mix for these sorts of things. And I kind of wanted to gauge, maybe even your sentiment in the chat. How aggressive do you feel like Bobby Webster is? Because this is our first year with Bobby Webster without Masai Ujiri. Bobby Webster is still our GM and has been our GM for a little bit now. Like at best, or maybe over a decade, but at least around a decade right now. But anyways, on the conversation of Bobby Webster, like, what is the aggression level like? Because you would think, and I would think this as well, and I do think this as well, you would think that a lot of Masai Ujiri's tendencies and tactics, if you will, would rub off on Bobby Webster, right? But again, I'm just, what changes are we going to see? I guess is what I'm really curious to see. What changes are we going to see? Because so far, Bobby Webster has only handled free agency since Masai Ujiri left. With that free agency, the Raptors had pretty much like no money to spend. And then, despite having no money to spend, they still landed maybe the best free agent signing they've ever made with Sandro Mamukelashvili, who has been terrific for the Raptors this season. So in the time that Bobby Webster has been at the helm, he hasn't really had time to make any trades, but the signing he made was Mamukelashvili, and that's been fine. And now we're going to kind of, as we get towards the trade deadline, now we're going to really see what his prowess is like. And based on the rumors here, it seems like, it feels like the Raptors kind of smell blood here because, we've lost 6 of 7, but we are still 5th in the Eastern Conference, 15-11. Feels like the East is a bit gettable this season. Like the Cavs were supposed to be the top dog, and they haven't looked like it this season. Feels like the East is gettable. So it kind of feels like the Raptors may smell blood a little bit, and that's why they're kind of pushing for a trade, because they feel like this is a gettable Eastern Conference, and they want to see how much noise they can make here. But what do you guys think in the chat? Paradise Lost says Bobby is not up for a job. For a job. You mean like not up for the job? Like, I think it's a bit too early to say that, if that's what you meant. Mark T416 joining us. What's going on? KP7 says Yak extension was terrible. I didn't understand it. I was pretty happy. I was happy with the financial aspect of it because it's 19.5 this year, 19.5 next year, and he's going to take that player option. Then it really kicks up as he's older. I was okay with it because I say it all the time. I think Pirtle's a great player. I'm a fan of Jakob Pirtle. Obviously, he hasn't played well this season, so I don't want to base it off of what we've seen in this smaller sample size to start the season because he is hurt. That clearly is hampering him. Now, if he continues to be hurt and we don't get a healthy Pirtle for a long time, then I no longer use the injury as an excuse. But if you look at the past 2 seasons, Jakob Pirtle has been pretty instrumental to any success the Raptors have had on the floor. And granted, they haven't had a lot of success, but they've been way more successful with Pirtle on the court than off the court. Their win percentage goes up 20% when he's on the court versus off the court. So I understood it. And, it's a starting caliber center for sure, a quality starting caliber center. It just felt like the contract was a little bit long. Committing that length of time to Pirtle, where he's going to be in his age 34 season at $27 million. Now, yes, I agree with you, KP7, the back issues for a center who's he's either 30 or about to turn 30 years old. I agree. That is concerning. At the time the contract was given out, it didn't feel like the back was as big of an issue. Granted, like maybe they knew something there and we didn't have as much information there, but I am starting to get concerned about the Poeltl contract. So that could look bad in the long run. I think at the time I understood it though. If that makes sense. I felt like I was in the minority there, to be fair, but I'm okay being the minority and sticking to my beliefs. But this is the contract if you don't know. So right now he's making 19.5. Player option next year, which he has accepted, 19.5. Then it kicks all the way up to 27.3, then 29.4, then back down to 27.3 for his age 34 season. 2029, 2030, he's been making $27.3 million. That scares me. I'm not going to lie. That length, I wasn't a big fan of. That length of time scares me because he's going to be entering like his mid-30s. He's 30 years old right now. He's entering his mid-30s on a lot of money. And the cap's going up and stuff, but that's quite a bit of money to commit for that length of time. So I agree a little bit concerning for me there. You think Bobby's up for the job? I don't. It's too early for me to tell. I don't know how much of a hand he had in the draft versus Masai Ujiri, but I'm enjoying the pick so far. I think Collin Murray-Boyles was a good selection. I think he'll get better, and I'm already liking the development strides that we've seen off of him. Last year's least. Oh, I actually didn't know that caveat to it, KP7. So thank you for correcting me there. I feel like as somebody who does the content, I should know this. It says it right there. Wow. Okay, that actually, I kind of take back what I said. I didn't see this part here. I actually did not. I didn't looked over here, nor had I seen that at all when the contract was made. $5 million guaranteed. That's actually, I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with the term at this point. You're giving. It's a big contract for 2 years. And then you have kind of the bailout a little bit in that final year of the contract if you do decide to waive him. That's a long ways away. And again, like I am still concerned about the status of his health and the back issues that you're scared won't go away for a player on now the wrong side of 30, first of all. And second of all, for a player of that size, like just a human being of that size. I'm not going to deny that there's worries creeping in for myself there, but when the contract was made, I was fine with it, and now knowing that the last year is only $5 million guaranteed makes me like it obviously even a little bit more. So I'm okay kind of with where we're at with the contract for now, but like maybe the seed of doubt is starting to creep in a little bit on that front. Yak is done in my opinion. I don't think he's done. He went from being a very high-quality starting center last season. I don't think that's just going to completely disappear. I don't think that's completely gone. You could obviously argue differently, but to say like he's done, I think is a bit unfair. He's been very, very good for the Raptors. I still don't like the trade they made to get him, but putting that out of the mind and just focusing on the player we have, he's a solid starting center of the NBA landscape. He's a quality starting center. Solid's can't understand. He's a quality starting center amongst the NBA landscape. Provides a good level of a great level of rim protection, good level of offense to the team. I think he's a good fit with the group that we have right now. Obviously, like you think about like a center who could space the floor, but a lot of those centers who space the floor don't do a lot of the other things as well as Jakob Poeltl does, such as protecting the rim, playmaking, screen setting, etc. So I'm not counting him out just yet, but again, that worry is starting to creep in. But again, back to what I was saying about Bobby Webster. I'm just curious to see what level of aggression is going to be there, how his style of running the team will change now that he's working seemingly as the top dog without Masai Ujiri. I don't even know what the power dynamic was. It felt like Masai Ujiri was the one calling the shots in the end of the day, but obviously, Bobby had a big say. I don't know what the power dynamic was, but I mean, it seems pretty evident now that it's Bobby doing the job. So we'll see what he can come up with, especially as we get towards the trade deadline, which is a couple months away now. I'd be surprised if it was actually more than 2 months away. Let me look it up. Sorry, I have my loud keyboard. I should have plugged in my quiet one, but it is what it is. Trade deadline is... Let's see. Trade deadline is the 5th, so we are less than 2 months away from the NBA trade deadline. So, yeah. Creeps up on you, and Raptors got to start making decisions. But I think, to thoughts, curious to see what Bobby Webster's aggression's like. I suspect it will be similar to Masai, and he will be aggressive. The fact that they're kind of getting themselves in the mix of these trades showcased to me that they believe the East is there for the taking, and they kind of smell blood and think they can make a run. And at the start of the season, Bobby Webster said there's a 0% chance the team stays the same through the season. So something's going to happen, and we'll just have to wait and see what that is. Is it a big trade with a guy like RJ Barrett? Is it a smaller trade with a guy like Ochai Agbaji? Again, wait and see, but curious on Bobby Webster's style, and we're going to find out. We're going to find out very soon. Anyways, let's dig into, I mentioned RJ Barrett there. Let's dig into the RJ Barrett side of things a little bit more here, because I've talked a lot about RJ Barrett on this channel, and anytime the Raptors are looking to make a big trade, and I try to come up with a mock trade, how the Raptors can get that player, the immediate player that goes into it is RJ Barrett. And a lot of people have taken real offense to that. And a lot of Raptors fans out there continue to question, why on earth would the Raptors even consider trading this guy, considering since he's gotten hurt, the Raptors offense has fallen off a cliff. Clearly, he's a vital player to this team. Well, let's dig into that a little bit more. Let's discuss why RJ Barrett continues to pop up in these trade conversations and why it very much seems as though the Toronto Raptors continue to shop him. We saw all through the offseason that the Raptors were looking to trade RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett was a player they were trying to move. And, I mean, honestly, we even got some reports that came out that suggested that they had been trying to move him last season as well. Reports say, and this comes from even a good source like Mark Stein, it was in this paywalled article here. Reports are suggesting that when the Raptors were going to acquire Brandon Ingram for the New Orleans Pelicans, initially they had offered RJ Barrett in a deal to get Ingram. And instead, the Pelicans, quote, preferred the expiring contract of Bruce Brown and stretch 5 centers Kelly Olynyk. So they preferred the expiring salaries of Brown and Olynyk versus... Kelly Olynyk, who $13.5 million this season, so cheaper. They preferred the expiring contract of Bruce Brown to RJ Barrett with 2 more years on his deal, around $27 to $29 million, I think, for those 2 years. That's just unfortunately kind of where it feels like the status of RJ Barrett in NBA discourse and valuation around the NBA is. He is kind of viewed to be like, if the Raptors wanted to move off of him, that it would be more of like a salary dumping maneuver rather than a team trying to strengthen their team getting RJ Barrett. So when the Raptors are looking to acquire a big-time star player potentially like an Anthony Davis or Giannis Antetokounmpo, why is it RJ Barrett that's always inserted into the deal? Well, I think there's some very simple reasoning behind it. It's not Immanuel Quickley, because Immanuel Quickley's skill set complements the top players in the team like Ingram and Scotty Barnes a lot more than that of the skill set of RJ Barrett. Now, I'm not saying RJ Barrett's skill set isn't important to the team. It takes a lot of the scoring pressure off of Barnes and Ingram, and that's valuable. They value his downhill scoring. They value his transition play. And evidently, since he's gotten out injured, the Raptors offense, like I said, has fallen off a cliff. Not to say RJ Barrett is just like the quick fix. You throw him in and all of a sudden the offense is good again. But it's a hell of a lot better having that 20-point-per-game player than not having the 20-point-per-game player. But when RJ Barrett's injured, he's out, nobody's in his place. If you're making a trade, you're getting something back. That is the key here. Obviously, no RJ Barrett. You're better off having RJ Barrett. But the Raptors maybe are thinking that they could be better as a team without RJ Barrett and by replacing him with somebody else. And I think that's just where some people are not quite getting the full scope of the situation here. Because yes, obviously to be better off having Barrett than not having him. But like, remember, you're getting stuff back, at least in theory. So this is where my approach to this would differ from the front office, because it appears as though the front office has been somewhat interested in just dumping the RJ Barrett contract. They want to get off that. And I think financial flexibility with contracts is a little bit underrated. I think it's a little bit more important than we make it out to be. But even still, the Raptors are trying to win games this season. They're trying to get into the playoffs this season. And as long as that is the case, RJ Barrett is a player that helps them win. RJ Barrett is a player that is talented, and he's good. It's just the skill set there maybe not be as complementary to Ingram as Barnes as something else that could be out there. So when I see stuff like this, and I saw it all over social media, but I see articles like this is from Jeremy Brenner on Sports Illustrated's website. It says Raptors' recent stretch may prevent RJ Barrett trade. I think certainly they'll have to think about it a little bit more now and think like, okay, our offense can't quite just get over the line on its own the way it is without Barrett. Like, clearly there's a lot of value in having that additional scorer on the team. But as it says here, the financial realities make him a clear trade candidate. An extension is unlikely given the Toronto Raptors offer hefty salaries to other players, which makes keeping Barrett risky. He'll be less value as an expiring deal next year when any potential acquiring team might lose him for nothing in 2027 free agency. I agree with the first part there. I actually disagree with the second part there. I actually think teams will view him as a little bit more desirable, knowing that he'll be off the books at the end of the season. I actually think the opposite. I think that makes him more valuable than he is right now with currently 1.5 years left on his contract. But that's kind of the viewpoint of the NBA. Is that RJ Barrett is viewed a little bit as almost like salary matching or salary dumping. And we can even go back to the trade where the Raptors acquired RJ Barrett. Like, if we revisit this trade here, the Raptors, I maintain, were in the market to get Emmanuel Quickley. They wanted to get a point guard who could space the floor for this team. OG Anunoby, I mean, looking back at this trade, I kind of look back on it with a little bit of anguish and regret. But it's easy to say that now and not then when OG Anunoby was on an expiring contract. Like, Emmanuel Quickley was like the key piece of this deal, and he has not quite kicked on to the degree that we would have wanted at this point. Doesn't mean that can't happen down the line, but for sure, Emmanuel Quickley hasn't kicked on like we would have thought he would. RJ Barrett has improved with the Raptors, but it still feels like his style of play is not quite the style of play that winning teams are looking for. And if it was, he would be a lot more favorable in these trade discussions, I think. So I'm not trying to like put RJ Barrett too down. I'm trying to just provide the reality of what the situation with him and his valuation around the league. At the end of the day, RJ Barrett, like I said, and continue to say, is a great player that helps the Raptors win. Maybe they're considering trades out there that could make them even better. And those sorts of trades, the easiest way to get up to that salary and match the salary is by using the $27 million that RJ Barrett's getting this season. It's the ease at which RJ Barrett can get traded, financially speaking, without sacrificing a really key archetype on the team like Emmanuel Quickley and the floor spacing provides and the point guard play that he provides. That is where the Raptors are approaching this. Now, again, where my stance is different is that the Raptors are trying to win games. I don't see the value in just salary dumping RJ Barrett somewhere. I don't see the value in that. If this is if the Raptors are keen on trading RJ Barrett, they want to trade RJ Barrett, then do it in a trade that you think makes your team better. Don't just get him off the books for the sake of it, because he is a talented player. I don't see the value in just getting him off the books. We clearly see that the team is struggling right now without him. And if you were to just salary dump him, not get much back, then you're dealing with the same issues throughout the rest of the season. And that's not going to help you win. The fact that you went and acquired Brandon Ingram is a showcase that there was a desire to win games. So as long as there is the desire to win games, I'd say no salary dumping RJ Barrett. Keep him to help the team win. But like if, we're talking Anthony Davis, we're talking Giannis Antetokounmpo, we're talking like, I don't know, if you can make like a gamble on like a Trae Young or a LaMelo Ball or even like somehow Trey Murphy, then for sure I'm seeing an upgrade there. I'm seeing the team better. So I would approach those trades with RJ Barrett as a salary matching part of the deal. Kind of unfortunate that RJ is being used as this kind of pawn for these trades, but again, that's just the reality of the situation. Question from the chat saying IQ and Yak are injury prone. We should take the risk on AD. I mean, I'd take the risk with Barrett more so than those guys. Again, quickly just bring something to the team that they are fundamentally lacking. I know they're missing Barrett right now, but there are players who can score. There are players who can get to the rim. The value in the three-point shot that quickly provides is a lot higher than what RJ Barrett provides, in my opinion. I think the style of play is more valuable to the team than RJ Barrett, despite the fact that RJ Barrett, in his time with the Raptors, has outplayed Immanuel Quickley. You have to consider the fit with these guys around as well. That's my stance on it, and that's why, again, this is why the Raptors continue to push him in these trade conversations. Like, for people wondering, why would the Raptors consider him? This is why. This is why they put him in that mix there. So it's unfortunate. I like Barrett. I think he's a good player. I love his heart. I love that he's Canadian. I love that he represents the city really well. But that's the status of it. Don't you think Immanuel Quickley will be overpaid? It's starting to look more and more like that. Definitely. I think I don't want to quite call it. I mean, he's not playing up to that financial value on his contract. We could say that. Not to say that he can't do it at some point. He's got 3.5 more years left in the contract, but IQ is a good player who's not playing up to the standard of a $32.5 million point guard at the moment. That being said, RJ Barrett's on a solid deal, you'd think, but it's not perceived that way around the league as well. Paul in chat says, we have to do something with this roster. We need something new. I mean, I think they got to do something. The big things are, still missing a bit of floor spacing, but granted, there's a lot of guys not playing as well as they should be playing, which would have helped with the floor spacing. The one glaring hole is the backup center, like traditional center. Just not having that rim protector when Pirtle is out is just absolutely killing this team. And the fact that Pirtle's not healthy and we have to plot him out there all the time because we have to plot him out there because there's nobody else to back him up. That lends to the issue as well. Sorry. So this is a common refute to Barrett. So Barrett shoots the ball. He's shooting the ball really well from three this year. He's been super efficient this year. 40% from three this year. So there's a difference between shooting the ball well from three and being a shooter. And the difference to me is when you're open shooting threes, and you're like, it's great that he's hitting 40%. I'm not trying to diminish that. But RJ Barrett isn't at the moment commanding respect in the perimeter enough to be considered a floor spacer. And Immanuel Quickley is. The floor spacing Immanuel Quickley provides is very, very important to the team. And we saw it in the last game that he missed. We kind of missed that. I think the best kind of analogy I can give to shooting the ball well from three versus being a floor spacer is when the Raptors replaced Fred VanVleet with Dennis Schroeder. That was like the direct replacement in free agency. We went from Fred VanVleet, who shot like 33% from three, to Dennis Schroeder, who shot 34% from three. So people are like, why are you upset about the lack of floor spacing? Dennis Schroeder shoots the ball better from three. Well, Fred VanVleet is a lot less open on his threes, making his threes more difficult. He's a lot less open because he's defended more aggressively on the perimeter, which opens up more space to his teammates. And he takes more three-point attempts per game. So sometimes he's taking shots that aren't as good as the one Schroeder's taking, but they can be considered good shots for him because he's that talented of a three-point shooter. So there's a trade-off a little bit with like percentages to like the spacing. That's just kind of like a direct like this is why it's different, because like Fred VanVleet shooting 10 threes a game at 33%, never being open for them because he's always covered the outside, giving space to teammates. That's a lot more valuable than Dennis Schroeder shooting even like 35, 36, 37% on like wide open threes all the time. So I'm not saying RJ Barrett's wide open like every time he shoots the ball from three, but he's respected less in the perimeter than players like Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley is going to be a better floor spacer for the team than RJ Barrett, even if Immanuel Quickley's three-point percentage specifically isn't as high as what RJ Barrett's doing this season. And the pull-up threat Immanuel Quickley has is valuable as well, as we've seen in game season, and particularly in that 9-game win streak, it was very valuable. KP7 says, need a defender that can take the pressure off Scotty to perform defensively too. Yeah, I think that's big as well, because a lot of minutes this season, the Raptors have played Scotty Barnes in the 4+1 lineups, where it's the 4 bench players plus the 1 starter, the 1 starter being, of course, Scotty Barnes. They've kind of, the rotation when they're healthy has been 4 bench guys come in with Brandon Ingram, then Ingram comes out, and it's the 4 bench players with Scotty Barnes. In those minutes with Scotty Barnes, like with the bench guys, he has to do a lot of the heavy lifting defensively, especially like protecting the rim. Some lineups they have done like Mamu and CMB, and then you have like a tandem big, and neither of them are traditionally sized, but like they can kind of work in tandem on the end of the court. But where Scotty Barnes plays his best stuff defensively is when he's playing as that help defense for it. I say this a lot. And the moments he's able to play that role, the help defense for, is when he has a rim protector and protect the rim. You have that anchor there for Barnes to help and get to the rim late. When we go to these bench lineups, it means Pirtle's not in the game. It means there's no real rim protector on the floor. Barnes has a lot to do that work himself. We're now taking Barnes out of the element in which he's at his best defensively. So definitely, I think bringing in a defender like as a rim protector takes a lot of the pressure off Scotty Barnes there. And you could even say like getting a perimeter defender takes Barnes out of having to play that role as well, where like Barnes can pretty much do any role on the floor. I could confidently say he'd be a great player playing in any of the 5 positions on the floor. But where he's at his best, and you want your best players operating at their best, is when he's playing as a help defense 4. Sometimes, yeah, there's a matchup where you'll have him on the perimeter. Sometimes there'll be a matchup where, like, sure, he's playing as like a small ball 5 and having to protect the rim. But where he's at his best is where I want to see him more often. And it helps by getting a rim protector primarily, but even like a perimeter defender, like KP7 says, would help. So maybe like the more 3-and-D type of player would be interesting. Like if the Raptors could, like we talked about trading Barrett, if the Raptors were to use Barrett to upgrade the role for the team and get like a higher quality 3-and-D player, that's getting more space for Scotty Barnes. That's allowing Scotty Barnes to play different roles defensively because RJ Barrett's not a strong defender. These are all things the Raptors should and probably very much are considering. Paul Claro says, we need a true point guard. IQ is not a 1. He is a 2 guard, and Shed is a... Well, I'm not going to say that. Please don't use that word. To answer the comment, I agree with you, but Immanuel Quickley is not strong enough of a defender, first of all, and also not a quality enough to make up for the lack of size for that position. I think Immanuel Quickley's size is that of somebody who should be your point guard. I think the Raptors are trying to work with him in that spot as a result. I also agree that he's at his best playing a bit more off ball as a 2, but I think you need a real specific type of point guard to make that work. Like if you had like a LaMelo Ball, I mean, you'd still like drop off a bit defensively. But if you had like a taller point guard, I think you could get away with it a bit more with quickly at the two. I don't think the Raps are in that position right now, and I don't really see a trade where the Raptors can move quickly and improve that position directly. It seems difficult to do. So I don't think there is like a replacement out there for quickly that makes sense. And off the bench, I think Shed has been great off the bench. So I'm not trying to lose assets on a player to replace Shed, because I think Shed has been great this season. I would also take Shed and AJ Lawson off the bench. We also need a backup. So yeah, take the gamble on Shed. Oh, Shed and AJ Lawson. AJ Lawson, I'm not as keen on. You know, the NBA is a different level. In the G League, where he has been great, and we'll talk about that, he can really operate as a primary scorer and create his own shot. But the NBA just hasn't been able to produce that at a consistent level against the toughest opposition. Now, he has it in spells, and we saw like a really good run last season with him, but I'm not sure he's quite strong enough in other categories to warrant the extra play time. But I do like the spots that Darko is finding him in the last few games, where the Raps, I mean, they're obviously been so bad. They're trying to find a spark from somewhere, and maybe that's like a decent role for AJ Lawson. But a consistent day-to-day rotation, I just don't quite see it for AJ Lawson on this team. Would be nice if quickly and RJ could fetch like an OG type of player. Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, looking back, as I mentioned earlier, I do look back with a slight amount of regret. But reel it back and say OG was on an expiring contract. If OG had, like, imagine if OG had left for nothing, what would we be saying, right? Like, it's, you know, Fred walked for nothing, we got upset. OG got traded, and we got, like, honestly, a pretty good return considering he's on an expiring contract, and, you know, we're upset about that as well. So, seems like the assets were just mishandled, but yeah, if you could have that trade back and OG would stay, I might be interested in doing that. Terrence Davis stealing. I think he is in the G League. I'm not sure. He's not good. I mean, if you're asking for like the Raptors, no thank you. If you're asking out of curiosity, I'm pretty sure he's in the G League. He's on the Kings. Okay, he's still on the Kings. Did he actually play? No. One game played this season, 8 minutes. Yeah, he's probably on the way out of the league. I can't see that career lasting too much longer. Can't say the same about the careers of these players here. It was this is a section where I wanted to look at this redraft that I saw. It was seemingly a very talented 2025 NBA draft class where the Raptors did not have the lottery luck on their side. That being said, with the 9th overall pick, they took Collin Murray-Boyles, who has looked quite good, I think, to start off his NBA career. Nothing necessarily spectacular, but a real solid professional, it seems that the Raptors have, that has improved quite a lot in the offseason and may look to continue improving over the course of his NBA career. But I know it's early on in the career of these players, but I recently saw an article that redrafted the 2025 class after like 25, 30 games that were in this season. And I was rather upset, let's say, with where Collin Murray-Boyles was on this list. And, of course, the article comes from Bleacher Report. A lot of the articles on Bleacher Report, I'll remind you how a lot of the Bleacher Report system works. A lot of it is directly made to drive engagement. Now, I'm not suggesting that these authors or these creators are specifically creating content as rage bait necessarily, though some people saw this article and did say that directly that this article was rage bait, but I don't perceive it that way. I think people are just looking for articles that get people talking. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're like fabricating their stance. I'm not saying that at all. But it's also important to remember about Bleacher Report is that they're often finding freelance creators to create the content for that. They don't have like a Bleacher Report staff on hand necessarily all the time for people writing. So anyways, this article written here by Greg Swartz, it made me question how much basketball Greg Swartz watches, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons. And I've seen it. I know where Murray-Boyles is. We will get to where Collin Murray-Boyles is. But first off, Cooper Flagg goes first. He hasn't been the most impressive rookie so far this season, and the article does mention that. But, like, I still agree. Cooper Flagg was the best player coming into this class. You still expect him to have the best career out of all these players. I think a good example of a player kicking on after a few years is like Cade Cunningham, where in a redraft right now, I'd take Cade Cunningham first. 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have, but now I would. I think Cooper Flagg's the most talented player with the most potential. I agree with him going first. Second, Dylan Harper has dealt with an injury this season. I think the Spurs would stay on course with that and take Dylan Harper here. But I think they'd consider someone else. Who they would consider would not be VJ Edgecombe. Was great to start the season. Has cooled off, as the article says. But yeah, some of the efficiency has become a bit of a concern. Some of the decision-making has become a bit of a concern. And I'll tell you who has not been concerning out the gate. Collin Murray-Boyles, who looks like an absolute baller, has been the best rookie so far to start this season. I think if the draft was redone, I think he'd probably go third. And I think you could make a case he goes second. Collin Murray-Boyles looks like the real deal and a guy that I think the Hornets should build around going forward. Like, I think this makes it a lot. Like, if they want to hit a reset again and move off LaMelo and Brandon Miller, I think this is a guy that would entice them to do that. I'm a real big fan of Collin Murray-Boyles, and there's no way, I think, to me, he goes fourth in a redraft. Fifth, you have Cedric Coward. That's probably accurate with the way he's played this season. Ace Bailey going sixth. That's also probably has some accuracy to it. Jeremiah Fears 7. I think that's also fine. He's been great. Derek Queen 9. 8, excuse me. I think that's also fine. Derek Queen has been great this season. I think you could even make a case Derek Queen goes a bit higher. I was pretty low on Derek Queen going into the draft, primarily because he's not a good defender, which he isn't, by the way. He still isn't. That can change. But he hasn't been a good defender. But he's on the Pelicans, so they suck, and it's fine. He's been good. Because on offense, I was worried that he's not a good defender who doesn't shoot the ball well from three, doesn't put a lot of pressure on the rim. Essentially, Derek Queen can only thrive as being like your offensive hub on offense. And in order to be able to play that role, you have to be so good that a team is willing to play through you as that kind of offensive hub. Well, it turns out he is that good in that role. He's been getting a lot of minutes there. He's been excellent this season. So a lot of respect for what Derek Queen is doing, but his defense is still concerned. But I still think that this spot is where a team would largely consider taking him. 9 is Trey Johnson, who I'm not like completely sold on him going in this spot. But he's shooting all right this season. I see the development, but I'm not sold on him maybe being in this spot. Kalkbrenner going all the way up to the 10th spot after getting originally drafted in the second round. I think that makes sense. Looks like a quality center here who defends the rim really well. Good defensive player for the position. Kind of guy that teams are looking for right now. I think that makes sense. Now we're kind of going off the rails here. Yegor Dioman was a big reach for the Nets when they took him where they did, which was 8th overall. And I don't think that puts him this high here. There is like intrigue here for the position, but I'm not super convinced he should be this high. But the most egregious thing about this list, Colin Malwash at number 12. I mean, Noah Isong, however you pronounce it, who I was pretty high on going to the draft, he suffered a season-ending injury, first of all, but he also underwhelmed in his time on court in the G League. Malawash has been extremely underwhelming so far, and I'm not trying to count out a center here. I'm not trying to count out a center because centers take a bit longer to develop. He could become a fantastic player with the athletic traits he has. But he's struggled out the gates. The Suns have been good, but he wasn't able to really crack the team. He's been sent down to the G League on 2 separate occasions. Again, I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player, but I think it's incredibly egregious to put him ahead of Collin Murray-Boyles, who's at 13. Like, I guess there is a consideration towards the team that they're getting drafted to on this list, and it's not just a rank of the rookies. But to me, I'm not sold on Murray-Boyles being below Trey Johnson, Yegor Dioman, or Con Malice based on the way he has started this season. I'm not going to quite get on board with that. Absolutely not. Like, Collin Murray-Boyles this season has maybe not statistically been fantastic, but he's averaged 7 points per game. He's averaged 55.3% from the field. He's averaging 48% from three on a low sample, but he's made 12 threes this season, which is more than he made in his entire collegiate career. So the three-point ball is improving. He is a very talented defender, and I think the best part about his game is that he's a very intelligent, high IQ player as well. Like, he's always making the right reads, it seems. He's always making the right decisions. Feels like a real pro out there on the floor for the Raptors, which is why I've been impressed with him, and which is why I was pretty stunned with his positioning on that redraft. Granted, these guys have played 20 to 30 games. It's so early. It's tough to get eyes on all these players. I get that, but feels like quite a bit of an underrated ranking there. Definitely. I'm a fan of Murray-Boyles. I wasn't big on him going to the draft, but he's won me over for sure to start the season. And I genuinely thought that, like, Murray-Boyles would have to spend some time maybe acclimating himself to the NBA with some time in the G League. Like, it took Grady Dick a good stint in the G League to get himself back up to the NBA level. Jacoby Walter had a very brief stint in the G League, and these are on, like, bad Raptors teams. Well, Collin Murray-Boyles doesn't seem like he's going to need any time in the G League, but I mean, from a Raptors 9-5 perspective, that is a-okay because of what we're going to talk about now and just how freaking well the Raptors 9-5 are doing. If you have not been following the Raptors 905, the Toronto Raptors G League affiliate, you have been missing out because the Raptors 905 have put up an historic start to the G League season. They started off with a G League record 11 straight wins, an 11-0 start to the season. They have built up a quality roster and are just winning machines right now. Not all of them like being convincing. Some have been a little bit more narrow, but a huge bounce back season for the Raptors 905. And we're going to investigate a little bit further into this streak and who those top performers are. Now, I remember a few years ago, I was a Raptors 905 season ticket holder when I lived a little bit closer to the arena. Now I don't, so I can't go. But Raptors 905 games are awesome. And I think if you're able to go, you should get out, especially with the team playing this well. Previously, they've had a head coach, Patrick Mutombo, who did a great job with the group. I saw a mini playoff run, an Eastern Conference Finals run for the Raptors 905 this season with guys like Delano Banton and Justin Champagnie balling out. But last season was a little bit of a step back for the Raptors 905 group. So it's so great to see them taking a step up this season and putting up like historic figures like this, starting 11-0. And they're only adding on to the history because they've since won another game and are now 12-0 to start the season after a 23-point comeback in their most recent game. 12-0 to start the season, just building onto this record, and hopefully they can keep this record going moving forward for the team. But coming into the season, I said it on the channel many times that I don't feel like the Raptors bench is top heavy, but I feel like it's a very deep bench. I feel like there's a lot of NBA caliber players on the Raptors bench, and it's going to keep some players who maybe get NBA minutes somewhere else, who are worthy of NBA minutes somewhere maybe, but there's not enough room for those minutes with the Raptors. And it has kind of panned out that way. The bench hasn't been top heavy, as players get injured, like we've seen Barrett out and Manu quickly missed a game. The replacements from a starting perspective haven't quite been up to scratch. But the deeper parts of the bench, we have guys consistently contributing, where it's like tough to get Collin Murray-Boyles a bunch of minutes every night, where it's been extremely tough to get Jamison Battle minutes this season, even though every time he has gotten those minutes, he has played quite well. It's been difficult to get everybody the role that we maybe think they deserve. So as a result, maybe some more talented players are getting a run out in the G League that in other seasons for the Raptors they wouldn't have done. Because, like, I remember a few years ago, like, Raptors were having to rely on big bench minutes from, like, Malachi Flynn and Juancho Hernan-Gomez, guys who are no longer in the NBA. Now it feels like we have quality NBA players, at least on the other end of the bench. So again, that just puts quality players in the G League, and as a result, the Raptors, 905, 12-0 start to the season. AJ Lawson has been the star for that team, averaging 24 points in the G League. He's playing so well that he's actually earned a couple minutes here and there with the Raptors in their recent poor run at the NBA level. But also, big shout-outs to Elijah Martin. Maybe one of like the older players for being a rookie, but he's averaging 19.2 points per game, and he's shooting 43% from three, 52% from the field in 12 games. Elijah Martin has been an absolute star with this team, and what's great about that is that he's developing, and the scoring aspect is what was maybe a little bit more like of a gamble. I think what mainly the Raptors were sold on was like the intangibles, how tenacious he was, how much of a winner he was with the success he's had in his college career, a national champion in his final season playing in college. Like, just an absolute tenacious player with a dogged mentality, and he's producing these levels in the G League, which is great. Jonathan Mobo has kind of disappointed, I think, at the NBA level so far, but he's getting good run on the G League with a good team. That's only going to enhance his development and enhance his confidence. Chucky Hepburn, undrafted free agent signing for the Raptors, two-way contract player, like Elijah Martin, AJ Lawson. He's playing well. And then it's just filled out with quality pieces, like Tyreek Key, who has been with the 905, solid player. Joyner, who's been with the 905, I think, previously, solid player. David Roddy, who has loads of NBA experience playing and not even getting the heavy bulk of minutes with this group. Olivier Sarr getting solid minutes. And even got like the likes of Quincy Guerrier, who has played well for the 905 previously, not getting as many minutes. And even guys like three-time NBA champion Patrick McCaw, who's just getting into the swing of things here. He's only played 3 games. He was an off-season pickup for the 905. But he's a 3-time NBA champ, one time with the Raptors. He is I believe he's a one-time now G League champion as well previously, where his team, I think it was Delaware he was on, they beat the 905 in the Eastern Conference semis that I alluded to having been present for. So feels like a really deep Raptors 905 team. Patrick McCaw even actually got the win today chain for the 905 after the recent 23-point comeback win to move to 12-0 in the season. So I think it's a really like interesting time looking at the Raptors 905 and looking at the depth charts for the Raptors. Now, as I said, it's a deeper bench, but it's not top heavy. So that's where we've maybe seen some problems for the Raptors. So people always tend to wonder, like, if a player is playing this well in the G League, why aren't they making that step up to the NBA? AJ Lawson's averaging 24 points per game in the G League. Why is he not making the step up to the NBA? It reminds me a lot of my experiences as a Raptors 905 season ticket holder when I was watching Delano Banton just absolutely feast on G League competition. Delano Banton was a great example of somebody who was tremendous when he had the ball in his hands and was playing against weaker defensive competition because he was so difficult to stop. Like, in the G League, he just pick up his dribble anywhere, find a way to manufacture a look, and he would score very often. The NBA is a different beast because, first of all, the defenses are a lot more difficult to navigate. That's kind of the big thing. But the second thing is, yeah, it's great when you have the ball in your hands all the time at the G League level. But when you step up to the NBA, you're not the best player anymore. The ball's in your hands a lot less. What are you going to do when the ball isn't in your hands? How are you going to impact the team enough on offense to justify your playtime when the ball isn't in your hands all the time? And this was always a problem for guys like Malachi Flynn, who, I mean, granted, when Malachi Flynn went to the G League, every time I watched him, it looked like he wasn't out of place. Like, Banton looked out of place in the G League. Just wasn't quite able to make enough of a consistent jump to the NBA. Malachi Flynn never quite looked out of place in the G League, which is a negative thing. But when Malachi Flynn had the ball, like we saw like a Pro-Am game where he had like 73 points that people were like screaming about and thinking like, how's this guy not getting more NBA minutes? Why is Nick Nurse not playing this guy? Well, because he wasn't good enough at that level to get the ball in his hands all the time, and he wasn't, unfortunately, producing nearly enough to, as an off-ball player, to justify the play time and justify getting minutes over anybody else, even on an extremely weak Raptors bench at the time. So that's just examples of like why guys can't make that step up all the time. Like guys like AJ Lawson, he is getting some minutes here and there, and he had a really good stretch for the Raptors last season. But when the Raptors are at their best, and guys like Barnes and Ingram are at their best, AJ Lawson is just not getting as many of those touches that he would be getting in the G League. So where AJ Lawson needs to find, what would AJ Lawson need to find to get more minutes in the NBA? And maybe even like Elijah Martin, I think, has some of these traits. Maybe AJ Lawson needs to impact the game a bit more defensively and impact the game a little bit more off ball. Again, I've liked him being used as that lately as like some sort of spark plug. Can he inject a spark into the offense? I think that's important for the Raptors to consider. Not like as an everyday rotation, but minutes here and there. Elijah Martin is showing some promise because if he's got some scoring talent and he can play off ball as a shooter and is a good point of attack defender who can defend the perimeter, that's an interesting one to look at. But I think mostly people underestimate the jump from the G League to the NBA. That being said, I'm fired up about the Raptors 905 starting so well, and it's great for Raptors development, and I hope that this streak can absolutely continue. Would Walker Kessler be a good idea if Danny doesn't ask for a crazy amount of picks? I mean, not right now because he's out for the rest of the season, but perhaps next season you could look at it, but I don't really want to expend assets there. I feel like Kessler's not really like upgrading on Pirtle. Hopefully Pirtle gets healthy though to make that true. Last thing I wanted to discuss, NBA Cup predictions. So unfortunately, looking at this from the window, not being able to play in these, but we have the Knicks against the Magic, Spurs against the Thunder. It's trending towards Victor Wembanyama being back and available for the Spurs in that game, which will obviously be a huge boost. But the Thunder just are a winning machine. I don't know how you could ever pick any team to beat the Thunder. They're 9-point favorites here. And like a couple days ago, the Thunder were playing the Suns. Like the Thunder beat the Suns by 50 points, by 49 points. They were 15-point favorites. The Suns have been good this season. The Suns are looking like a playoff team, and the Thunder beat them by 49 and were favored by 15 going to the game. I just don't think there's any team that can come close to competing with the Thunder right now. So I have to say the Thunder there. As for the other game in the East, continuing to see signs that maybe Paolo Banchero isn't a player that drives a ton of winning, so they're going to have to navigate the stretch. I think Franz Wagner's been injured. The Knicks are looking solid right now. I mean, they just beat up on the Raptors in the quarterfinals. I think the Knicks will win that game, and then, again, in the Thunder lost the final last year, but I think they're even way better than last year at this time. I do not see anybody being able to compete with the Thunder here. I don't know how other than if the Thunder are healthy, like the Thunder, if SGA is healthy, I don't know how the Thunder don't win a championship. Truthfully, it's an insane state of affairs. All right, is Banton in the league? I believe he is not. I believe he is not in the NBA. He's in the G League. So it depends what you call in the league. He's not at the NBA level at the moment. Anyways, that is it, guys. That's the hour. That is the show. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I've got some plans to get to. So if you guys enjoyed the content tonight, please do me a favor and hit the like button. It does make a huge difference to helping us in the YouTube algorithm. It only takes you a second, but it helps me out a lot. If you're new to the channel, get subscribed as well. I do content like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I also do Raptors watch-alongs, which I'll be back for on, I believe the Raptors play on Monday. Yeah, they play the Heat on Monday, and we should have, as long as work isn't crazy Monday, we should have a Raptors Happy Hour stream to go with that as well. So it should be a good week coming up. Weekend, I'm going to be off, and I'm going to enjoy the time off this week, and I hope you enjoy your weekend as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you